This program contains graphic violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
August 30th, 2006. A man down on his luck is about to transform into one of Hollywood's most terrifying killers, Freddy Krueger.
When Jason first put on that glove, he must have felt tremendous power.
Just like Freddy Krueger, Jason wanted this ultimate power, this power of life and death.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger haunts the dreams of his victims.
If he's in your dream, you're dead.
37-year-old Jason Moore is obsessed with A Nightmare on Elm Street and its knife-slashing assassin, Freddy.
A Nightmare on Elm Street is one of the most popular horror franchises, certainly of our generation, but I'll say of all time.
It's not enough to just watch the movie and love the movie and imagine himself to be Freddy. Jason brought it to life.
With a fistful of knives, Jason enters his victim's nightmare and attempts to bring one of the bloodiest horror movies to life.
He's gonna strike when they're the most vulnerable, just like Freddy. He's gonna kill them while they sleep.
A copycat killer is on the loose, and if you want to survive, there's only one rule you need to follow. Don't fall asleep.
Good afternoon, Mr. Skomarski. Sorry to startle you.
Yeah.
Detective Rogers, I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Can you tell me all the details you can about the day of your attack?
I called Jason because I heard he was feeling down. He just got fired.
Did you know Jason well?
I thought I did. I thought we were friends.
37-year-old Jason Moore has always considered himself a bit of an outsider.
Jason is a run-of-the-mill average guy. Nothing really remarkable about him. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He doesn't have many other hobbies or really any other hobbies.
An introvert on the fringes of society.
Jason was best described as a loner. For anyone in isolation, no one chooses to be alone. We need social contact. We as humans need to be socially interactive. It's better for us. It's better for our mental health.
The only thing keeping Jason connected to the world is his job as a stonemason, a craft he's extremely skilled at.
Hey, don't stay too late. Hey.
Jason's job was a very important part of his life. It was the one place where he put his self-esteem. He was good at something.
Jason had a craft, and he had to be very learned in what he did and how he did it. It wasn't something everyone could do. It was something he had mastered. The job for Jason was everything because he had a limited social life. And for many of us, the job is our identity.
Isolated, Jason suffers in silence.
When people don't have human contact and they don't have the ability to share their inner thoughts, they eventually start having a skewed perception. Because you're not able to share, you're not able to converse. So you're just left alone with your own personal thoughts, and you tend to ruminate on those thoughts.
Although he doesn't have many friends, Jason does have one buddy in his corner, 59-year-old John Paul Skomarski.
John was the one friend that Jason seemed to really count on. They were as close as Jason would allow in his life.
I think John is more able to give, to be a friend. He doesn't demand a lot back, obviously. You know, if you've got a friend that doesn't get along with anybody else or doesn't have any other friends, you're really the giver in the relationship. And I think John recognized Jason as needing someone, and I think John was a good person.
It's the quality of the friendships, not the quantity of friends. You can have lots of friends, but it's really what those friendships give you and how they're there to support you. You can have a lot of friends who are truly there to support you, but the individual may not see it. You know, depression or mental illness skews our perception, and we may feel more alone than we truly are.
Jason knows something needs to change.
When you feel alone, you feel helpless, and you feel powerless, and you don't feel in control.
And I think that the older he gets, the less satisfied he is with his life.
But Jason has a dark secret. An obsession with the kind of people that demand complete and total control. Serial killers.
Serial killers might speak to Jason because these are people who got away with murder. They had the power of life and death of another person in their hand. And for Jason, who had no such control in his life, the ability to determine whether you would live or die was a really powerful draw to him.
I think a normal person, a person coming from a positive place in life and sense of self, looks at serial killers and thinks that they're, terrible people. But if you're a person like Jason, you would look up to them. You would fantasize, wow, that guy's got power.
Jason is inspired. He wants to learn everything he can about the world's most evil killers.
What could have been just a pastime or a fleeting interest for Jason actually turned into something that consumed his waking moments. He became obsessed. Researching serial killers is all Jason wanted to do, and it's all he did. Jason became a voracious reader and researcher. He read constantly about these murders and about different people who were serial killers.
Jack the Ripper, Zodiac Killer. I mean, these are names of people. We know they're real because their killings are real, but they go on for, years without being caught. You can almost assign supernatural powers to them. How does somebody get away with this for so long? So even though they are real flesh and blood people, I think their image is larger than life.
But Jason isn't just obsessed with actual serial killers. He likes fictitious murderers too. Especially one of the most supernatural serial killers of all time, Freddy Krueger. In 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street introduces audiences to a new kind of horror.
A Nightmare on Elm Street was written and produced by Wes Craven. Wes Craven is one of those names that's synonymous with horror. It stars Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. I'm sure that Robert Englund probably gets referred to as Freddy more than he gets recognized on the street for his own name, just because that character was everywhere in the 80s and 90s.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger haunts and kills several high school students by appearing in their dreams.
Freddy seems to take a lot of pleasure in stalking people throughout their dream.
Freddy Krueger is the ultimate serial killer. I mean, he gets people where they're most vulnerable, in their dreams.
People don't want to go to bed because as soon as you close your eyes, there's Freddy.
Freddy uses your nightmares to find you. And then he attacks with his most famous attribute, his knife-wielding glove.
Freddy's weapon of choice would be the glove on his right hand that has very long blades coming out of the fingertips. There's something very frightening about seeing somebody wearing something like that because everything about that glove looks deadly.
Jason has been a fan of Freddy Krueger since the film hit theaters in 1984.
Jason sees Nightmare on Elm Street when it first comes out. And from the moment he sees it, he's hooked. He's fascinated by this movie. And that fascination grows year after year after year, and he never tires of watching that movie.
In the film, once you see Freddy in your dreams, he's already coming for you.
There is a very popular children's rhyme in the movie, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Lock your doors, don't go to sleep. And basically once you hear that, you know you're next and there's nothing that you can do, you're gonna die.
The movie is a horror cult classic. And Jason can't get enough.
From the moment he first watched Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason wanted what Freddy had. He wanted the power. He wanted people to fear him.
One could say he may have had poor relationships with people, but he developed a relationship with the film and the character in that film.
To Jason, Freddy has absolute power. But in the movie, that wasn't always the case.
Before Freddy was haunting everyone's dreams, he was a child molester and a murderer. Freddy was caught and imprisoned, but due to a technicality, he was released. And that enraged the families within the town that he lived in.
On Elm Street, the parents want Freddy to pay for his sins, so they trap him in a basement and burn him alive. But Freddy doesn't stay dead for long.
Now he lives on by haunting people's dreams within the town. So they've almost cursed themselves to this plague that we'll call Freddy Krueger.
In the midst of his isolation, Jason seems to understand Freddy's motivation.
One would imagine that Jason felt pretty powerless because he did have a need for friendships. He did have a need for romantic relationships, but that wasn't happening in his life. And so, like a serial killer, Jason may have fantasized about seeking revenge on the people he felt rejected him.
Freddy is exactly what Jason wants to be.
Jason watches Nightmare on Elm Street 20 times. He can't get enough of it. It was like a shot of adrenaline to him watching that movie over and over again.
After all, he needs to know absolutely everything about the iconic slasher before he attempts to become the real-life Freddy Krueger.
Did you have any reason to believe he was capable of violence?
No, I never saw that side of him.
Tell me about the glove.
Jason Moore is a lonely man with a deadly obsession.
Jason loves watching A Nightmare on Elm Street, and even though 20 years has elapsed from the first time he'd seen the movie, he still feels the same way. He loves Freddy. He wants to be Freddy.
Jason yearns for power and control over others and within his life, just like Freddy Krueger.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger returns from the dead to take revenge on the children of those that murdered him.
Freddy Krueger is a child molester and a murderer, and he was burned alive by parents of children in the town. Freddy seeks out his revenge by hiding in people's dreams and murdering them.
Freddy is one of the most recognizable horror villains of all time.
Freddy Krueger is someone that everybody knows. And frankly, being in the Freddy Krueger movies made a number of actors very famous. Johnny Depp got his start as a fresh-faced kid in that first Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
And now, Jason is determined to once again bring Freddy back from the dead.
Jason needs something in his life to give him some kind of power. He doesn't really have it. People don't know him, they don't remember him. Being like Freddy would change all of that. People would know who Jason was.
Unfortunately, men are taught not to show their feelings, to be stoic, to be tough, and not to share. If you are sensitive or you do seek help, that's considered a weakness. Men are supposed to be strong. That's the masculine trait.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's look is legendary.
He's got a red and green tattered striped shirt that, along with his fedora, are very trademark. We never really see him in anything outside of that outfit.
But what really stands out about Freddy is his choice of weapon, a glove with knives for fingers.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, when killing, Freddy tends to use his signature glove to slash, hack, impale people.
To the average viewer, the mechanics behind creating Freddy's infamous weapon is unfathomable. But when it comes to Jason, a skilled craftsman, he knows exactly how he would build Freddy's iconic glove.
Jason was extremely talented with his hands. He just had to figure it out and make it for himself.
When we're infatuated with an icon, we would try to collect or create or show homage to that icon. And Jason was able to do that by working on this glove.
Jason wastes no time trying to create the perfect copycat weapon.
Jason has watched A Nightmare on Elm Street at least 20 times. His obsession was so complete that he was able to construct Freddy's weapon just from watching that movie again and again and again.
To build his own glove, Jason needs 4 super sharp knives, some brass housings to attach them to, and a leather gardening glove.
Jason starts to build his very first Freddy Krueger glove not long after he saw the movie the first time, so this was back in 1984.
Over the next 22 years, Jason perfects the glove time and time again.
He winds up building 4 gloves in all, and it's not until he gets to that 4th one that he really believes that he's gotten it right.
Jason put his heart and all of his effort into trying to recreate Freddy Krueger's weapon. This glove for him was a labor, but it was one that was a labor of love.
The power Jason feels while wearing his glove is exactly the kind of rush he was hoping for.
For the first time in his life, probably, Jason believed that he had accomplished something great. He had accomplished something for which he would be remembered.
Gloves makes Jason feel like a rock star, the most powerful man on earth. And I'm sure in his mind he's thinking that anybody who saw him with that glove on would think the same thing.
The glove was the power. The glove was the control. The glove represented who he was and whom he wanted to be, which was Freddy.
But soon, even the glove isn't enough to sustain Jason's morbid fantasy with A Nightmare on Elm Street.
I don't think simply making the glove and showing it to people would have been enough for him. The kind of power he wanted could only come from using the glove.
Jason's obsession with Freddy Krueger consumes his life.
Jason connected to Freddy, but Freddy is purely fantasy. That is a mythical icon. Freddy doesn't exist in our reality. There's plenty of icons and plenty of role models that Jason could have related to in our real world. But that would almost point out his deficits if he was to relate to people that he possibly could emulate. Freddy was so far off the map that it became almost like relating to a superhero.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy uses his razor-sharp weapon to slash everything in his way.
It is as scary as he is. And he has a lot of fun with it, whether it's rapping on a wall, dragging it down like a wall. He's always tempting people with it because he's aware of how scary that glove is, and he wants you to be scared.
Off-screen, Jason's transformation is almost complete.
Tell me about the glove.
Never been so scared in my life. Yeah, I forget seeing that glove.
Can you describe it?
Freddy Krueger's glove.
So you decide to stay the night.
Yeah. I have trouble sleeping, so I took a couple of sleeping pills before I called it a night.
There's every reason to believe that at some point in Jason's emotional brain, he thought he could be possibly possessed by Freddy. And so he was morphing into a real-life Freddy Krueger.
But just as Jason's obsession with Freddy Krueger grows bigger and bigger, his career as a stonemason begins to suffer.
I called you in because we've been getting a lot of complaints.
Jason is let go from his stonemason job, and that's a turning point for him.
Jason's now unemployed, and even for the most confident people in the world, losing their job is always considered a trigger. It suddenly makes you think, like, what am I worth? How am I gonna get another job? It can be devastating for anyone.
Losing your job is hard. It's hard for all of us. But for Jason, it's especially damaging because that was his one connection to reality.
The death of his career reminds Jason how truly powerless he still is.
With Jason not having that touchstone of reality, I'm a stonemason, I show up to work every day, I work hard every day. He seems to be completely adrift, and he's got all the time in the world to indulge all of this fantasy. He goes off the rails at this point.
Jason is at a loss for how to put his life back together, so he turns to Freddy Krueger for some motivation.
He's got two things in life that make him feel good about himself. He's got the job and he's got the glove. And now he's just lost the job. I think he's probably thinking, if I want to regain control, if I want to get some power back, I got to use the glove.
I was wondering if you could tell me about all the details, exactly what happened the day of your attack.
I called Jason because I heard he was down. He just lost his job.
Freddy Krueger superfan Jason Moore feels like he's lost everything.
Jason was a loner whose career was the only thing that really gave him a sense of fulfillment in life. And when he lost it, he's unmoored. Losing your job literally means you have no reason to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, if you've got nothing else going on, you have no family, you have no children, you really have no friends, the only thing that makes you get up and go somewhere is that job.
The only thing that still provides Jason with any kind of joy is his love for the horror film A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Jason is obsessed with all things A Nightmare on Elm Street. He loves Freddy Krueger, and he even constructs his own glove with knives in it, just like the one that Freddy Krueger used in the movies.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger is a supernatural villain killing people in their dreams.
Freddy's terrifying because he exists within our dreams. When you fall asleep, you enter Freddy's world.
Once you're asleep, it's only a matter of time before Freddy finds you and slashes you with his razor-sharp glove.
It is impossible for us to go without sleep, so it's almost a waiting game. He knows you're going to eventually go to sleep.
Off-screen, Jason makes his own deadly replica, a glove exactly like the one he admires in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Until Jason loses his job, he's able to spend all of his time, all of his thoughts in this fantasy world of Freddy Krueger and how he could be more like Freddy.
Jason wants to feel as powerful as Freddy, and he knows the glove is the key.
Jason acts like Freddy because he gets a feeling of empowerment. It almost became his armor as he lost control when he lost his job.
But just as Jason seems to be drowning in his own nightmare, someone reaches out to help.
Jason's got one thing going for him, I think, at this point. He's got a friend named John. And I think that John probably feels sorry for Jason. And I think he's the one person who recognizes that Jason needs someone now, and he's going to be there for Jason when Jason needs him most.
John offers to meet Jason at a local park to catch up.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? Man, I heard about your job, man. Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, it happens.
John believes that Jason could do with some company. He shouldn't be alone because he's down in the dumps, he's lost his job, and John thinks that he could be just the person to go over and spend some time and cheer him up.
So you got any plans?
John seemingly is a shoulder to cry on.
John's like a touchstone for Jason. It's a connection to the real world, a world outside of his house.
I understand.
They're hanging out. It begins to get a little late, so they decide to go back to Jason's place.
Maybe Jason seemed like he was having a good time, so I think John was probably, thinking maybe he should stay because, he didn't want to leave his friend.
It's a decision that John may soon regret.
Jason has the potential to be dangerous because he's fantasizing about very violent acts. He has no sense of self.
Back at Jason's house, John has no idea how close he is to evil.
John couldn't possibly have realized what he was getting into by going home with Jason. He didn't know about the glove, and he didn't know about Jason's obsession with Freddy Krueger.
When they get to Jason's house, they start drinking. The two of them knock back a gallon of this alcoholic cider.
They're drinking, and it seems that John is right. He's cheering Jason up. He's a good companion, and before they know it, it's very late. John decides that he doesn't want to drive home, so he's going to sleep at Jason's place.
But before John passes out on Jason's couch, he takes a sleeping pill.
There would probably be very little that could wake him up. And I think that Jason probably took a look at him and the wheels started turning.
Jason has been losing touch with reality for a while. And having his friend John over, drinking, and then having taken a sleeping pill in front of him, Jason can't believe his luck. He feels like, this is exactly what I've wanted. John is in that deep sleep that he won't easily awaken from.
Jason realizes everything he's been fantasizing about has come down to this moment.
John is asleep. Freddy only kills a victim when that victim is asleep. Jason, who wants to be Freddy, is presented with a sleeping victim. Jason's pretty sure that he's got the perfect moment to become Freddy Krueger laid out literally before him on his couch.
John now has become part of Jason's fantasy. He's been pretending for 20 years, but tonight, his fantasy is going to become a reality.
Jason knows it's now or never.
Everything seems to have led up to this moment in Jason's life.
With the film fresh on his mind, Jason prepares to become Freddy Krueger.
Once he created the glove and once he wore the glove, that was reality. It was no longer fantasy, it was no longer a film. He had taken something that Freddy Krueger had and he had brought it into the reality of his life.
Jason has all the control, just like Freddy.
He thinks this is the best thing to have happened to him, and he certainly doesn't want to mess up the moment. He wants to seize the opportunity to kill a sleeping victim.
For Jason, it must have been intoxicating. Now, this is the moment, and I'm ready for it. This is my reality. I am going to become Freddy Krueger.
Tell me what you can about what you recall about the attack.
It all happened so quick. I felt this pain in my chest, and
Jason Moore is about to live out his Nightmare on Elm Street fantasy, killing like the movie's star, Freddy Krueger.
Jason's life has always been tough, but lately it spiraled out of control. He lost his job, which was really the only thing that made him feel good about himself, and he's in a terrible place.
But just when Jason hits rock bottom, his friend John reaches out and offers to cheer him up.
John was being a good friend to Jason. He was hanging out with him, spending some time with him because he knew his friend was in a bad place. But instead of looking at John as, a shoulder to lean on, Jason's looking at him like a throat to slit.
In Jason's favorite slasher film, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy is an unstoppable force, killing everyone he encounters by haunting their dreams.
Freddy hasn't shown that there's anything he cannot do in a dream. It seems like whatever he can imagine, he is capable of.
Jason is harnessing the same kind of power as he stalks his first victim.
Everything has come together. He's got John asleep in front of him, under the influence of alcohol and a sleeping pill.
Perfect place, perfect time, perfect situation.
Jason is brandishing Freddy's deadly glove.
Objects that we wear can play a very pivotal role in how we feel internally. So just like a suit or a sweater can change our perception of who we are on a particular day, that glove for Jason gave him a feeling of protection. It almost became his armor as he lost control when he lost his job.
With each step, Jason feels his heart beating faster.
This must have been the biggest moment that ever occurred in Jason's life.
At this very moment, he's even deadlier than Freddy Krueger, because Freddy Krueger could only kill people in their dreams, and Jason is about to do it in real life.
Freddy Krueger would not hold back at a time like this, and neither will Jason.
Jason pounces on John, pinning him down while he slashes him with his Freddy Krueger glove.
He's slashing at him. With every slice, I think it's probably like he's been practicing for this moment for years.
But John won't go down without a fight.
When John wakes up and Jason's on him slashing him, he tries to fight back, but he's drunk and he's taking a sleeping pill. So it's almost like he's in this terrible dream state, just like in the movie.
In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy attacks the main character, a teenager named Nancy.
film's protagonist is Nancy, who is the daughter of someone who participated in Freddy's death. Freddy appears in Nancy's dreams and stalks her, as he does the rest of the children.
Off-screen, Jason is doing the same to John.
John's survival instincts kick in immediately. I mean, he's fighting back with everything he has, but Jason's determined that John's not surviving this because Freddy's victims don't survive.
John is doing everything in his power to try and get his wits about him and save his life, but he's confused, he's blindsided, and he's in a lot of pain.
I think once John was in the moment of defending himself, he was unaware of how badly he had been cut or what exactly was going on. All he knew is he wanted to live.
As John struggles to save his life, Jason feels he is one final slash away from becoming a true copycat killer.
He's ready to end this once and for all.
He's finally going to be the real-life Freddy Krueger. Jason Moore wants to kill his friend, John, just like Freddy Krueger slashes his victims in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Jason's got a replica of Freddy Krueger's weapon, the glove with the knives as fingers, and he is slashing and stabbing at his friend.
But Jason soon realizes being a real-life copycat killer is much harder than what he's seen on the Hollywood screen.
Freddy never had to struggle for his life. Freddy made those murders seem easy. Freddy wielded that glove and his victims just fell. There was no fight. And Jason's realizing that in real life, it doesn't work that way.
He's been struggling with John for close to 10 minutes.
Jason planned it out in his mind that he would attack John while John slept. He'd slash a couple of times maybe, and John would quietly die, just like what happens in A Nightmare on Elm Street. The reality, however, was not that. John woke up. John tried to fight back. John tried to make sense of what was going on. And above all, John didn't just die.
John begins to beg for his life.
John begins to appeal to Jason, hey, it's me, what are you doing? I think he tries to use his words to make it stop. John's about like one stab away from death, and he's now pleading for his life. John probably thought he was in a nightmare and that he was gonna wake up, and when he didn't wake up from that, I think that's when he really began to beg.
The words coming out of John's mouth pierce Jason like a knife.
When Freddy Krueger's victims pleaded, it didn't matter to Freddy. But when John starts pleading with Jason, there's a connection. It starts getting through to him. And I think slowly Jason kind of realizes, oh my God, what am I doing?
John looks Jason in the eye and says, please, don't kill me. Let me live. Call somebody, I need help. And John's pleading actually reaches him. Jason agrees that he's got to try and save his friend now.
Do you have any idea why he stopped attacking you?
I was begging for him to stop. I was pleading for my life, and I just said, just please don't kill me.
What happened next?
He sees the blood, and that also brings him back to, oh my God, what have I done? John was able to get through to Jason. He was able to talk to him in a way that was able to pull him to realize that he was committing murder.
I'm sorry. Hello, yes?
But just when John wonders if Jason has really given up his Nightmare on Elm Street obsession, he does something Freddy Krueger would never do.
Jason realizes he's not a murderer. He's not Freddy Krueger. He's just a sick guy. And he called 911.
He said, I stabbed him. I tried to stab him in the heart. I tried to kill him. And he said, I don't understand. I just don't know why I did it.
Moments later, help arrives.
So the paramedics and the police arrive, and there's John bleeding profusely, and there's Jason still wearing the Freddy Krueger glove. I mean, that's not something you see every day.
This is a scene out of Nightmare on Elm Street. There's somebody with a Freddy Krueger glove who's beside someone who's slashed all over. It's a horror scene.
John is rushed to the hospital where he receives emergency medical assistance.
Well, Mr. Skamarski, I can tell you when we arrived in the scene, he was still wearing that glove.
The whole thing, it was like a nightmare. It was like a nightmare.
Jason is arrested without resistance.
It's almost like Freddy took over, like he was possessed by Freddy Krueger when he attacked his friend.
Even though Jason didn't go through with his deadly plan, he's not completely ready to confess to his copycat crime.
When they bring him in for questioning, he claims that he doesn't remember anything. He's only just come to. He has no recollection of what he did or why he did it, and he's just as confused as they are.
So many criminals claim to be in a psychotic state because it's an easy excuse, and they don't have to take accountability for what they have done. Well, we'll never know for sure. Does Jason not truly remember what he was doing? We don't know, but we do know that he didn't kill John.
At the end of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy manages to bring Freddy out of her dream and into real life.
Nancy's able to trap Freddy in the basement, and right before the police save her, she sets him on fire again.
But the thing about Freddy Krueger is, he's impossible to kill.
Freddy has continued to live on through his films for years and years. It's not always explained because almost every film, it seems as though someone finally found a way to kill him. They come up with a lot of different ways that he should be dead, and they just never stick.
As for Jason, he too lives to see another day.
When Jason goes to court, he pleads guilty to wounding with intent. He claims himself demented and deranged and, a disturbed individual. Luckily, Jason's victim survives, and Jason is sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 4.5 years to serve.
And just like the character he copied, Jason gets a sequel.
Jason does serve his time, but just like Freddy, he returns to the world a free man.
I think the sentence reflects the possibility that the attack was some kind of psychotic break. And I think that's time enough for people to evaluate him and decide whether or not this was just the unfortunate result of a psychological disorder or if this guy really is a homicidal maniac.
For Jason, anything is possible once he's released, but you also have to want treatment. You have to want to be better. You have to want to interact with society. The first step is asking for help.
But no one will forget Jason's copycat crime.
John survived, and as much as he can recover, did that. But certainly there are wounds that will not heal.